Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we're decoding tweets of July 14, 2018. Thomas, the first tweet reads, "I have arrived in Scotland and will be at Trump Turnberry for 2 days of meetings, calls, and hopefully some golf, my primary form of exercise. The weather is beautiful and this place is incredible. Tomorrow I go to Helsinki for a meeting on Monday with Vladimir Putin."
Again, it's always an honor, Betsy, to attempt to decode the Stable Genius's seven-dimension chess with you. It's an honor. Of course, we can't tell you the whole story because sometimes, as he said when he was asked about his strategy, he says, we don't reveal our strategy. We don't broadcast. We don't tell you ahead of time, you silly mainstream media people, what we're about to do because they're too stupid to understand it. This is what's really going on right now. Basically the civil rights section of the Organization of American States has voted that essentially Julian Assange must be released from the Ecuadorian embassy and allowed to go get on a plane and go to Ecuador. We were going to tell you the other day that that was part of Trump's plan. We didn't understand that he had already made this motion and it's already been considered and ruled on through the Organization of American States, which is every American country except for Venezuela, South America, Central America, North America, Canada. So anyway, they've all agreed. And basically...
And for those who want to see proof of that, I'll have that link in the description box with all the other goodies I've got down there for you.
Yeah, it's the headline on Truth News Headlines today. You always got this stuff.
I know, but there's some people still here on this YouTube site that don't know about Truth News Headlines.
Well, then they're missing out because you don't need to read any other news besides what Betsy and her team puts out for you. You can try all you want to top it. Good luck. Anyway, so he's in Scotland not to have, as he says, he might be able to golf. No. Why is he in a non-secure place horsing around in between these meetings? Because he's waiting for the release of Julian Assange. All that talking he did with Theresa May was to say, why are you holding Julian Assange prisoner? Because when Julian Assange is allowed to go to Ecuador, he's already agreed publicly that he will then tell where the WikiLeaks came from that showed Podesta and Hillary's DNC corruption, Democratic National Committee. Basically, what they are saying, some are saying was a breach from Seth Rich. Others are saying now Rod Rosenstein comes out and miraculously somehow, though he doesn't have the server, never had the server, never looked at the server, all of a sudden Mueller is able to know what's on the server, and he's absolutely 100% convinced he's indicted 12 Russians over this. No, here's what the truth is. The truth is, when the Awan case got wrapped up, sewed up so that no questions could ever be asked of Awan, what we told you is that Guccifer 2.0 and the DC leaks, and the leaks from the DCCC, and the leaks from the Democratic Congressional Caucus, and the leaks from the Democratic National Committee were all Imran Awan putting it out for sale to anybody. Israelis, Pakistanis, Russians, whoever, it didn't matter. It was out there for sale. Very, very, very easy to understand what's going on. Well, there was no hacking, and Julian Assange didn't get that material from Russians, and he can prove it because he has, of course, the data stream that will demonstrate it. So if Julian Assange gets out, and we believe that that was part of the Trump plan, and that is part of the reason he's staying in the United Kingdom for 2 days when he doesn't need to, it is because of Julian Assange. Because if that comes out, then the whole Mueller investigation is not an investigation. It was a continuation of an FBI counterintelligence operation, which is in fact a political assassination attempt, which then became an impeachment assassination attempt, and now has become, because of Agent 5 and Agent 1's tweets, has become literally a physical attempt of assassination. And we've already pointed out numerous assassinations that are probably going to be found coordinated through the text messages that did not appear. Remember, Peter Strzok was allowed by Michael Horowitz, this came out in the testimony yesterday, to pick and choose which of those text messages he would allow out.
So
Remember?
the ones that we read were the best he could do.
That was the best there were out of the 55,000. The rest were much more
More damaging.
damaging, yes, indeed. So they're going to be talking about Putin about Nord Stream 1 and 2. Here's what's going to happen. If Russia removes itself from Syria after making sure that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard leaves Syria and leaves Iraq, then Putin and Trump will strike a deal to open both Nord Stream 1 and 2. But he may skirt around because Germans can't be trusted. He may allow Nord Stream 1 to actually go to other countries before it reaches Germany, which it can. So that's going to be what they're talking about, and it's going to be really funny because this is what I would suggest would be the funniest thing that could arise out of their meeting, their summit, and that's if Putin says, hey, you know those 12 GRU agents that have been indicted by Mueller? I'm going to allow them to come to America with representation so that they can show us the evidence that they have so that we can put this to rest once and for all. Because, first off, those guys don't even work for the GRU. That's an old list. Second off, they didn't do the stuff that Mueller is accusing them of. That was done by the Brits through the Strategic Communications Logistic Group through the Obama's Global Engagement Center. That's a well-known fact.
Well, assuming Mueller's list of names actually match actual people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They probably don't even exist. The others, remember, now this is what's absolutely insane and funny. Rod Rosenstein's indictments that he told us about from Mueller's indictments of these Russians, is nothing more than George Webb's 2017 lawsuit against John Podesta. Change the name Imran Awan to Russia, and you have the same exact wording, charges, setup, and the whole thing. So just like Mueller went after the first 13 Russians based upon an article that was like, I forget how old it was, 4 years old, 6 years old.
Yes, and again, all of this is on Truth News headlines.
Well, we've already showed all this. We've given you the articles. So Mueller simply found a New York Times article that was old and used that to come up with the first 13 Russians. Now he is in huge trouble because one of the companies named, the Concord Catering, the one that's called Putin's Chef, has come to America with representation and is ripping Mueller's investigation to pieces. They've asked for 70 times they were denied responses to discovery. 2.5 million pieces of Russian nonsense was pulled off of Facebook, and Mueller said that was the evidence of this Russian interference in our election. But it was never translated. So how could it have affected any Americans? We have...
How do they know what's even in there?
Exactly. They don't. And so it's been proven fake. The whole foundation is fake. Everything's fake.
This
So
is just absurd.
the Russians came to America and just are beating the snot out of Mueller. He had to get, I think it's 5 new lawyers to help defend him on just that part of the case. So in the new 12 indictments, they're all going to go to a secret department of the Department of Justice where national security issues, top secret, are handled. And therefore, they'll never come to light. And you will notice that they're being conflated. The 12 first indictments are being glued together with the second indictments, and all the accusations are being thrown together so that it's just a big friggin' mess. And all it is a New York Times article and a George Webb lawsuit with the names changed. And it's so pathetic. And then, of course, we know the other indictments are a complete joke. Manafort, of course, you know, that's happens every single day in Washington, D.C. with every politician, what Manafort's being charged with. But George Soros can steal $18 billion out of the New York Stock Exchange without paying taxes, and he doesn't get charged. But Manafort can move around a few dollars to help his daughter get her house together in New York, and he is in solitary confinement.
Okay, let's get back here now to Julian Assange, because this is huge. I mean, can you imagine what a hero Donald Trump will be if he is to free Julian Assange? I mean, this is something that affects people around the world. It's not just a Brit or a U.S. Ecuadorian issue. It is, what it represents is the enslavement of all of us and our ability to speak and to move in the world with liberty and freedom. So I see that as a huge trump card. And then that is just a little bit of what's to come, because then he goes to Putin and we could be looking at world peace here. This is huge. This is the trump card. And when we look at this, people have so elevated Trump. And of course, I wouldn't dare speak for him, but what I sense, what resonates with me, is that he knows that his power comes from we the people. It's our unified voice. Plus, he has some incredible intelligence that he's working with as well. And all of this together gets him in the right place at the right time in history as we need him.
It's not in the tweets, Betsy, but we need to point out that the balloon of Trump that was in that square that hardly anyone showed up for, that was in the morning. And then in the afternoon, there was in Trafalgar Square thousands, tens of thousands of people, and they showed the march. That was the strangest group of...
looked like San Francisco's march.
It looked like a Halloween march. It was
Mardi
so
Gras.
strange. And then they interviewed some of the people, and those people didn't know up from down. But what I want to say is I'm thrilled they came out. I'm thrilled they've come out for Tommy Robinson. I'm thrilled that Mayor Khan allowed them to come out and have some free speech, because otherwise there's no free speech. And they are more brainwashed than even mainstream media has made Americans. So when they interviewed the people who were there, they couldn't even get a sentence out of their mouth without spewing their hatred that was completely illogical and has nothing to do with them. First off, here's the reality. All you 50,000 who marched, Trump is your hero. He is your only salvation.
Well, they'll figure that out.
You're marching against the wrong guy, but you'll figure that out. I'm thrilled that you're even able to or allowed to express free speech at all, because you're not going to in the future.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. The stock market hit 25,000 yesterday. Jobs are at an all-time record, and that is before we fix some of the worst trade deals and conditions ever seen by any government. It's all happening. Well, all I can say is a stock market at 25,000 is too dizzying of heights for Miss Betsy. That is just, I don't know. I look at that. We've done citizen intelligence reports. We know this thing is completely rigged. So I hear on one hand you're praising those numbers, but on the other hand, as a reasonable person, I know it's fake.
Well, he told everyone the stock market's rigged, but it doesn't mean that it isn't an indicator that he's going to use of the way that he's making the economy better. Because
they've taught most Americans that a high stock market number is a good thing.
Oh, this is unprecedented. This would be the greatest thing for the stock market ever. Notice that ICE, who owns the New York Stock Exchange, did not sell it. They were going to sell it in 2017 because they said they weren't making enough money. Well, they're making a lot of money now. Now, remember, we keep saying, when the idiots get out of Trump's way and he finishes these deals with tariffs and knocking down the barriers and using things like NATO or OPEC dollars or the petrodollar, or using OPEC leverage, or all these things that he's using, they need to get out of his friggin' way. He's already added between 5 to 10 trillion in value. This is value. This isn't projection in 1 year. Now, if they get out of his way, those trillions are going to go to tens of trillions, because he's already fixed this before these trade deals are corrected. Once the trade deals are corrected, money is going to flow to America, stay in America, more taxes are going to be collected. Basically, and then once that happens, then he's going to start the real agenda, going after the U.S. Fed, going after offshore accounts, and continuing to march in terms of putting sanctions economically on our enemies.
The next tweet reads, the stories you heard about the 12 Russians yesterday took place during the Obama administration, not the Trump administration. Why didn't they do something about it, especially when it was reported that President Obama was informed by the FBI in September before the election?
So, Betsy, he tweeted this out twice. It looks like at 4:53 and then at 5:08. So he wants you to get the message on this. So we're going to give you a long message decoding on this one.
Well, I will add the tweet in the middle is, where is the DNC server and why didn't the FBI take possession of it, deep state? So we'll wrap that up and we can discuss those all together.
Very good. Rat Rod Rosenstein coming out saying there were 12 more Russians he's going after, and then he's going to hide it in the deepest section of the DOJ so that the accusations are made so that the Democrats can say there was Russian collusion and insinuate that it was with Trump, which is all a lie. Rat Rosenstein has already come out and said there was no collusion between Trump and the Russians. That's complete nonsense. This Russian interference was during Obama's time. Obama ignored it. No, it was the British working through the Global Engagement Center. Now, he says the most simple thing that has to be said. Rat Rod Rosenstein, you friggin' idiot. Where is the DNC server? You can't come out and say now that that is fait accompli, that you have evidence, proof that the Russians hacked the DNC server. You don't have the server. You never had the server. All you had was a report from Dmitry Alperovich. Now, what is really going on? The Awan case was closed down. When that was closed down, it said they couldn't investigate any of his espionage charges. And as George Webb showed, it was Awan who had hacked the DCC, who had given out the information, who had hacked the DNC, who had hacked Hillary's emails, who had hacked Podesta's emails, and had set up an observation of 44 different Democratic members of the House and their staff. And then that was given out to anybody who wanted it, and then that became what was probably a U.S. project called Guccifer 2.0, which was not a Russian, and it wasn't a Russian hack, and we have proof that it wasn't a hack. It was a breach. The information could not have gone out at the speed that it left if it was a hack. It could only be a breach going to a memory device. Someone would have had to have access to do that. There was no hack. Dmitry Alperovich left those same old, and when I'm saying old, I mean those GRU footprints that Rod Rosenstein is talking about are a first generation that everybody in high school uses if you want to convince somebody you're either a Russian who did the hacking, or there's also Chinese footprints and there's North Korean footprints that are so common. But Dmitry, is using not even a current version. There's been 2 updates to it. So anytime you see GRU footprints and their first version, 1.0, that's Dmitry Alperovich. But of course, Rod Rosenstein and Mueller never had control or never had access to the DNC server. So that's why Trump keeps saying that. But also, he's also insinuating the other server that Imran Awan had in Xavier Becerra's office as the proxy server that then went to an off-site proxy server. Which is now
missing.
Which has now been stolen, according to the Capitol Police. And then after it was stolen, the FBI say that they have it in their possession. Isn't that interesting? So,
frankly, we just need to close down the FBI. It's so darn corrupt. Just close it down, lock the door, send everybody home.
It is about that point.
I mean,
both the DOJ and the FBI.
Why can't the states handle this kind of law enforcement?
All of the leadership at the top of the intelligence agencies has to be questioned at this point. Now,
well, that's why I wonder, where does Trump get his intelligence? These people are so corrupt. They're not giving him actual news and intelligence.
During the election, as Hillary, 8 times from July when the Crossfire Hurricane was started, and the Trump dossier, which she helped create with Sidney Blumenthal and others, John Podesta, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Fusion GPS, and foreign agents, Christopher Steele, and all those foreign agents. I can name dozens of them. That was the real Russian meddling. But during that time, when Hillary started saying Trump is connected to Russia, Russia, 8 times over and over, never let up, and then during the debates, never let up on it. Okay, why? Because that was the plan from December of 2015. We've told you the whole story. But during that time, you kept hearing these leaks. And the leaks would say all kinds of things about, there were 10, and then there was 15, and then there was 21 spear phishing attacks against people who work at election polls, on their private computers. And you look closely, there were actually Dmitry Alperovich's 1.0 Russian GRU footprints left on all those spear phishing attacks. And they happened during the election, and those were Dmitry working with Comey, leaving those footprints. When they were looked at by experts because they came out too early. Remember, they kept attacking Trump too early and blowing it. They weren't ever supposed to let anyone see that dossier. It was only supposed to be talked about. But then when he got elected, it became a device for impeachment or a device now for assassination. This is literally an attempted coup, and I mean in every way, including
they would have
threats of
JFK'd
assassination.
him.
Yeah, this is a JFK. Now, what were the other ones? There was an attack leaving the same footprints of one state's Secretary of State office where they got a number of people's license. Well, hello. How about the Social Security, IRS and Social Security giving 800,000 DACA members?
IRS is another thing that needs to be shut down
Completely.
Oh my gosh, the corruption there is like whatever happened to David Brock. David Brock, everyone out here sees the corruption of him with his tax returns, and we hear diddly squat from the IRS about what they're doing with David Brock.
David Brock was proud to admit that he tried to pay off 5 whores to say they had sex with Trump. And then we know the story, we know their names. And Stormy's the only one left standing. We know that David Brock is paying her. Okay, this is stupid that we play these games.
Yeah, right. So, sorry to interrupt, but IRS has got to be next on the list. I saw a great article about, let's just pay, and it was Mike Huckabee. It's just a flat tax. We just pay on consumption. And then we wouldn't have to fill out these tax returns. We can get rid of all the expense of hiring an accountant every year to figure it out and the audit costs. And it's just a way to, it's like a mafia. And these are the extortion, what do they call them in a mafia when they come around and extort you for money? And if you don't pay up, then they have their own jail and they have their own federal court system that you go through. People, we got to wake up and get out of this system.
By the way, we predicted everything that happened there with Rod Rosenstein yesterday.
Oh,
we predicted that would happen. We predicted that as soon as they could get all one out of this situation, that then they would say it was Russian. They'd say that Guccifer 2.0 was Russian. They'd say that the DC leaks were Russian. All complete, absolute nonsense. What was really going on there, that was their interference, they call it. They were running interference for Hillary's direct connection with Russia and all of the people that we've just mentioned, their collusion with hiding uranium-1. So the Russian connection was with, of course, the Democrats, and that was never looked at all, not once, by Robert Mueller. He's there to cover these things up. So now, what's really happening is this is the most pathetic attempt so far, again, to try to cover up the real crimes of the Democrats who did have collusion with foreign governments and were, in fact, meddling in the election. So what are we going to see from this in the end? Exactly as we predicted. The longer Mueller stays in this nonsense and keeps up this nonsense, the more he is going to end up being the target of the investigation, because he is now revealing the crimes that he's doing even in this investigation. Like Peter Strzok was a star witness for the grand jury indictment against this whole thing. He's been discredited, he's been fired, his security clearance has been taken away. Then he came and he lied so many times, I don't even want to go into all his lies, but he lied so many times that if you don't call that perjury, then that congressional hearing is fixed. But we'll see what happens as time goes by, because as they come to light, they're discredited. Now, instead of saying Mueller, the most ethical person in D.C., which is what they always called him, ethical as any Eagle Scout, Boy Scout. No, now they're calling him the corrupt Mueller, the absolute fixer Mueller. They're calling him what he is. And so what we're seeing now is his entire investigation can go down if Julian Assange is given the ability to get to Ecuador and then give us the evidence, if it was Trump that did this, which I believe it is, give us the evidence to prove that Seth Rich, for instance, if Seth Rich was killed, then that was a murder concerning hiding
of
this
course, there is a
breach.
lot of speculation that he's sitting pretty over in Israel. But how will we know? Because we can't trust investigators, law enforcement, and the judicial system anymore to know what truth is. And I will say this. What's even more important about Julian Assange is not so much what he can reveal about Mueller, because we're going to be able to do that. It'll just take a little time. It is that he is a prisoner of the Queen. The dungeon that she put him in is the Ecuadorian embassy, and he needs to be freed. He has a family and he has a life that he hasn't been able to live and enjoy. And for that reason alone, he should be freed.
And there's nothing he's doing that is illegal if there's
No.
such a thing as free speech.
No.
Which there isn't in Britain.
And and then that parade we're going to have in November, I hope he is the what do you call it? The guy that's going to be in the front of the parade.
Exactly.
The marshal.
Yeah, that would be great because Assange has the key to show how much this corruption, and that's the reason they silenced him. And now we believe that Trump is actually literally staying on the island until Julian Assange is allowed to leave.
I've read, and I don't know enough about flight schedules, that the Trump plane, not the Air Force One, but his Trump plane, is also over there. Maybe this is all speculation on my part, that is the plane that will take him away. The other thing, speaking of planes, this is such great news. Trump wants a makeover of Air Force One, and that is the best news. That wimpy, light-colored blue plane, that is not the plane that should be flying POTUS. So I'm looking forward to a big, bold red, white, and blue in the skies.
Now, I want to point out one other thing. There are many, many planes over there right now, and just as you say, that could be for a very specific reason.
Right.
But when Air Force One, he wouldn't ride on Air Force One until they removed the QRS-11, or now 14, the QRS-14, and the uninterruptible autopilot.
Yeah.
Because that's controlled by the Queen in Serco. And so he wants new planes because he's taking out all the surveillance devices. He's taking out all of the rigged aspects of Air Force One. That's why he wouldn't ride in it at first until it was debugged and until it had the controls which could crash it taken off of it.
Okay, next one. So funny, I just checked out fake news CNN for the first time in a long time. They are dying in the ratings. To see if they covered my takedown yesterday of Jim Acosta, actually a nice guy. They didn't. But they did say, I already lost in my meeting with Putin. Fake news. May I read the next one?
Not yet.
Okay.
I want to beat up Acosta.
Okay.
Every time Acosta opens his mouth, he accosts the president. It is insulting, and he literally should be kicked out of the press corps. And if they can't send somebody better, then they should simply be kicked out altogether. But he said, because the station we were watching showed it, he says, I don't call on CNN because why? Jim kept being a jerk and yelling over the top of everybody else. And then he yelled at the POTUS again and again in an argument. And then Trump had no choice but to say, I don't call on fake news, CNN, that's fake news. And then he made the whole joke about, oh no, Theresa May, it's okay. You got to confront these people because they're confronting you. So the two questions that were insulting that were asked of the president, only two, CNN and I think it was NBC. And they were jerks. And they prefaced their questions with a condemnation. They cannot even ask a question without it being so absurdly biased that they show that they shouldn't be reporting on the news at all. They're just coming as an assassination. This is a political assassination. These are hit jobs, and these are assassins, and they need to be called out for what they are. They're slanderous pigs, and they need to have charges brought against them.
Thomas, there's a lot of talk on the internet right now. People are just walking away, not just from the Democrat Party and their liberal agenda, but also from television. They realize that it is propaganda. So we challenge you, just turn off your television for just a week and see what happens to your world. It won't crash. Find some really good independent media stations, channels that you like to listen to, and stay in touch with them. It's a great thing to do to stop being brainwashed.
CNN should change their name to Onion, and you can put it on the Comedy Channel. Because if you listen to it and you think that that's true, you're going to get really, really upset because of the subliminal programming that is going on at the same time that doesn't coincide with the facts. And then the slant, the bias, the complete manipulation, perception manipulation, these are neural network narratives they're placing in your heads, folk. If you don't realize what they are and laugh at them as the only counteraction that you can have that will actually save you, you are like those people out on the streets in Britain who don't even know why they're there. Oh my goodness. Now, one other thing is that they tried to insinuate that Trump meeting with Putin, that it's already a disaster. So they're already predicting the disaster, which in fact could be one of the biggest meetings in modern history to actually denuclearize the world, Stop the trade, stop the energy wars and the rat lines of pipelines controlling wars. Let's just call the pipelines what they are, get it out on the table, and stop hiding them as the hidden agenda. And then let's call Angela Merkel what she is, this daughter of George Soros, and get her out of office, show the German people what was really going on, show the European Union that they don't even exist. They got rogue nations inside the European Union ripping them off, and they don't even want to admit it. So, yeah, we can go on to the next one.
Remember, it was little Jeff Z and his people who are told exactly what to say, who said I could not win the election and that, quote, there was no way to 270, close quote, over and over again in the Electoral College. I got 306. They were so wrong in their election coverage, still hurting.
We have now revealed that there's a thing called AVID and a program called ISIS Management that literally gives the very words to every single mainstream media person speaking and when to say it, so that if you tune into all of them at once, you'll hear them saying the exact same words. They are nothing but puppets. They are not journalists. There's no investigative journalism going on in mainstream media.
No,
it's
not
just
puppets.
lies.
I like to look at Fox News. Those puppets have cleavage and skirts up to their butts. So you see their eye candy that is distracting you, not only reading bad news, but you will never figure out what's going on.
It's kind of like as soon as they start doing, as soon as CNN starts doing topless pundit delivery, then it is going to finally get some
Well, he calls out CNN,
attention.
But Betsy's saying it goes all the way to Fox News. It goes to the Drudge Report. Folks, these people are propagandizing and brainwashing you. Turn it off.
Alvy Watkins, the prostitute. That's who we're dealing with. Prostitutes. These are people who have sold their soul to just read to American people the propaganda that they're given. It is so pathetic. Please do not waste your time on them.
Okay, the final one for today is our prayers are with those affected in the flooding in Japan. We commend the rescue efforts and offer condolences to all who were injured or lost loved ones.
Yes, that's a tragedy. And also, I want to point out that another tragedy is Taiwan. Right now, China is in a war with Taiwan. It probably will not escalate to live bombs, but there's live actions, live military drills happening over Taiwan continuously, and Taiwan is about ready to fold, and no one in the entire international community besides Trump has responded. So I like the fact that Trump always responds, appropriately to these things, because really we are the superpower in the world, and we need to use it for good, not just to threaten people, not to control people, and not for globalism. So America needs to take its place again in the world as a leader, and Trump is being one of the most bold and dynamic leaders that America has had in modern times.